All right. So today's topic is robot schedule advanced tips. Get your keys to the Cadillac of job scheduling software for the IBM I. All right. So today, again, the three of us will be presenting. If you want to go to the next slide, Chuck. So Chuck, go ahead and introduce yourself again.
Oh, yeah, sure. Chuck Lisinski, been with Help Systems for 22 years, focused almost exclusively on IBM I, and it's been a great ride and hope to have many more wonderful customer experiences.
And Tom.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Tom Huntington. I guess I'll take a little different spin. My hobbies are sailing, pontooning, boating, pretty much anything water, fishing. I like to do some fishing, travel, love to travel, even though I've been fortunate to be in probably about 35 different countries over my tenure at Help Systems. So been a great ride from that standpoint. And of course, I love IBMI. Back to you, Mark.
Right on. Thanks, Tom. Well, if we're going to do hobbies, I'll do mine today. Well, family first. I enjoy watching my kid play high school sports, so that's a fun time. And I collect classic cars. Kind of like the IBM I. It's a classic, so I like it.
You like things that are reliable, I guess. Well, are classic cars reliable? Probably not, right?
Sometimes not. All right, let's go to the next slide.
Yeah. So what we decided to do today is, first of all, follow up on a couple of questions we had yesterday that I would call operational. All right. And so and Tom, if you'd like to, you could launch the polling question while we're actually
sure.
not. You can't launch the polling question and have me
I did
do
already.
my live demo. Okay, well, go ahead and launch the polling question. We'll just talk about what we're gonna.
It's
Okay,
open.
that's
Which
fine.
feature of Robot Schedule are most useful to you? Check all that apply. Reactivity, dynamic variables, schedule activity monitor, file events, the GUI.
Wow,
Go right
that'd be
ahead.
a hard. I'd choose
Yeah,
all.
it's pretty hard. I'd probably choose all of them too. So
Yeah. Well, okay. While people are answering the polling question, a couple things that one thing we didn't talk about yesterday, and it came up because our robot schedule was down for a few hours last night due to system maintenance. So we're going to show you how to identify the jobs that were missed when robot schedule was down. It's called run missed
That's true.
jobs.
We didn't cover that yesterday. That's a good topic.
Yeah, and I
Okay,
think we
looks like
might just.
we're gotten pretty good results already on our polls. So
Okay.
let's see. Almost a minute has gone by. We're at a minute. That's enough. Let me close it. Let me share it to you all. The GUI. We got a lot of people with the GUI and reactivity. I would agree. I mean, and really it's a high percentage on every one of these. So today we're going to talk about dynamic variables and file events, right? So we'll share some more on that. So you might after this say, that also might be 75%. I guess back over to you, Chuck, to share how to do run missed jobs.
Okay, let's start with that. All right, so into the GUI or into the thick client or the GUI Explorer. And this feature is also in the green screen, and I can show you where that
It's
is.
off
But
the control menu in the green screen.
yeah. But here's the deal. So Robot was down for a while last night, and I know when it was, precisely when it was down. But if you right click on your system name, there is an option called Run Missed Jobs. All right, and the Run Missed Jobs will initially show you what the current time is. And so what you can do is you can go backwards in time. So let's say I want to go back to 1 in the morning for today's date, and you can go back to previous dates as well. And then there's some options here. If you don't select display list of missed jobs, what's going to happen is Robot's going to look at all the jobs that didn't run during this time period between 1 a.m. and now, and it's going to say, okay, I'm just going to run those. Otherwise, if you choose this option, you'll actually get a list. And then there's also this check completion history. And at this point, I'm going to hit the F1 key just to re-emphasize that we do have help, of course, HTML-based help now in the GUI. And so if you have any question on any screen, certainly you can press F1, and in this case, the check completion history says it checks to see if there's any job completion status in history, and if it finds anything for this date, then it's simply not going to be shown on the list. All right, it won't be considered missed. All right, so I'll say okay. Robot is out examining the list of jobs. All right, so you can see we've got a number of jobs here. It shows when the job was supposed to run in terms of time and day of the week. All right, and you can click on the submit all, or you can select those jobs that you want to run, and then click submit selected jobs. This is a really good operational topic. Tom, do you have any follow-up on this? And actually, maybe I'll say one thing. Here's an every job. Here's a job that runs every 10 minutes. So that's probably a job that we wouldn't have to run.
Right, that's going to just get kicked off automatically anyways, unless there's a time range on it, Chuck. There could be, right?
Right. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
My other comment would be you can kind of automate this too. If there is in system setup, the system defaults area where you can tell robot schedule just to automatically do that. So there's
a right here.
run. It says auto work. Again, there are some things in robot schedule terminology wise that existed back in the system 38 and we never rebranded them. And auto work is one of those. All it really is doing is running things automatically for you that were missed during that downtime. And you can even do that. Some people choose to put that in their IPL program and do something like if it was an abnormal IPL, they'll have robot schedule, they'll do an if logic on that and read back. So just some tips on that. Okay.
Yep. And then in the green screen, run missed jobs. All right, so that's control options, run missed jobs. Okay, the other thing I'd like to cover real quick was our discussion around history. And there's a file, RBT MSG, that you can review in Robot Live, and it'll tell you how many records are out there. In the GUI, there is a history option here to automatically delete job history, job monitor events, and event monitor history. All right, so I've modified these from the regular defaults. For instance, I've upped our delete job history option from 6 to 60. All right, so you can definitely increase this value, but you see this checkbox is checked on my system.
Yeah.
So what happens is Robot is going to automatically delete history based on the number of occurrences of a job running. This default that you see on the screen, that's what gets put into a new robot job. But any job can have a different number of run records kept on it. All right, so let's just go look at a job, and I'll look at, for instance, my age out queue job, which we do have running. On the control options panel, so whether you're in green screen or GUI, there is a parameter that you can modify that says historical runs. You can see it says 6 here, and that's because this job was created. Actually, this job was shipped with the software. But anytime you create a new robot job, we populate it with that value from system defaults, and you can override it. All right. Now, there are some customers that don't use our automatic purge process. We also ship RBT 655, a job called RBT 655 with robot schedule. And that's a program you can call that
it's on hold when you get robot schedule.
There you go. Yep. It's on hold, but you can modify it to delete history based on date. All right, so if you add 2 parameters to the parameter string of the RBT 655 program, the first character is blank. The next 6 are the starting date, they can be all 0, and then the next 6 after that can be either hard-coded or you can use a reserve command variable. We're going to talk about that today. And let me just show you what this looks like. Here I'm deleting all history that's 7 days old, and I'll test the variable, and you will see I'm going to delete all history back from the 16th and older. All right, today is the 23rd. And I also have another job that I assisted a customer with. They wanted to delete history that was 18 months or older. So
Okay.
we created a similar job, and we simply put in a longer reserve
Reserve
command
command
variable.
variable. Sure.
Yeah, going
I mean,
back
we've
to
had
December
customers,
20th.
right, that haven't purged their history ever, right? We used to run into that quite a bit. And so we
That's
started
why I
putting
bring
in
it
the
up.
automatic purge. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Very good.
Well, we're done with the polling questions, so let's roll right into the agenda. Tom.
All right. The agenda today, we're going to convert from other schedulers. Actually, I'm going to convert from work job schedule entry, but we'll also talk about AJS and a few other things like Robot Start Learn, cross-platform scheduling, the ability for Robot Schedule to reach out to Windows, Unix, and Linux. We know you have more than just IBM I. File events, when we talk file events, primarily talking about monitoring IFS files and library files, but also files on Windows or Linux servers. Opal, which is a built-in feature of the product for doing some advanced pre-processing of jobs on IBM I, and we'll talk about some of the capabilities there. Dynamic variables, which are reserve command variables, and then really wrap it up with interactive job scheduling, and then also some other integration points at the end. So converting our schedulers and import export, let's just move into that topic. I always say, if you're not using Robot Schedule on IBM I, then what are you doing? We do run into a variety of things. People have CLs that is maintained by a developer. And then the big fear these days is the developer who owned this for the last 20 years is retiring soon and nobody else knows how it works and they're scared of it, right? I had the same thing happen to me, but it was way back in the System 38 platform. And that's how I got into Robot Schedule. Our developer was retiring that maintained the night processing and I put it in Robot Schedule. Anyways, rest is history. Then work job schedule entry. As you know, this is a free scheduler built into IBM I, but it has limited capabilities. It's more of a date and time oriented scheduling, no dependencies, no GUI, just lacks a lot of functionality that you need when it comes to real business automation. And then application schedulers. We certainly run into SAP, Oracle, JD Edwards, and others. The biggest issue I see with those is that most of those schedules are very similar to work job schedule entry, and they don't allow you to often integrate your other processes that you need into your scheduling, like backups and history purges and things like that we do. And then AJS, probably the biggest weakness. That's the IBM Advanced Job Scheduler. Doesn't include the enterprise scheduling piece. Lacks in reporting when it comes to compliance and audit. That's some of the challenges we see with that technology. And then, of course, enterprise schedulers. There's still CA or Broadcom, BMC, IBM themselves, which is actually owned by HCL, which is the old Tivoli product, Tidal, Redwood, and others. Most of those companies do not understand IBM I. You're on your own, and they lack the capability of functionality that we have in Robot Schedule because it's been built for IBM I. Okay. So we have built into Robot Schedule, we have some commands that you can use and documentation that goes along with it. So if you go out to our website in the community portal, you'll find a PDF for each of these topics. RBT convert schedule entry is for the work job schedule entry. I'll show you that one. There's a RBT AJS conversion too to read in the advanced job scheduler jobs. And then a longtime good friend of ours, Robot Start Learn, has been in the product forever, and it can learn in SMIT job processes from your menu system and build robot schedule jobs out of them. And I'll show you that today. So on to the next. This is just the work job schedule entry. What you can do is you can do all your entries in the work job schedule entry and bring them automatically in there. We'll also generate some nice conversion reports for you. But we also can do one job at a time. In either case, we put the job in Robot Schedule, we put it on hold. So you have to release it to run it, okay? Then we have the next slide. We have the advanced job scheduler conversion, and that one there, very similar. It's going to convert by job name or by application name. They do have that feature. And then there is the ability to, I guess, have different libraries for your data. You do need special authorities to run these on your system. You will get some errors if you don't have the right authority to do it. The other thing we do is as we do these conversions, we basically build you an audit so you can share with your audit team, hey, this is what we did, right? Okay, next slide. And then I think the next topic will be Robot Start Learn. Again, Robot Start Learn, RBT, STR, LRN has been around in Robot Schedule from a green screen command standpoint. Oh gosh, at least 30 years. What it's going to do is it's going to capture behind the scenes the submit job, the program it's calling, the parameters, the local date area, the job queues, the job, all the work management stuff, and then put it on hold. You could even run this against that big CL that we were talking about that is running your night processing. And it'd be a little tricky. What you got to do is do robot start learn and then call that same CL interactively, and we'll learn everything in there. Okay, next slide. Let's see if we have one more, and then we're going to do live demo, I believe. Or okay. Oh, the import export. I almost forgot about that. Also inside of Robot Schedule, we have the ability to import from XML into Robot Schedule. So we've had some other technology out there, and we also have the export. So people can use the GUI to create jobs on one partition and export them in the XML and import them through the GUI on the other partition. You might do this for testing environments, QA environments, that kind of thing. And we'll import, export the jobs, the schedule objects, the calendars, opal, pretty much everything you need with that job to run it on the other system. So it's kind of a way of doing kind of a change management, QA testing, and then move it into production. But you can also import from XML, so that's how you would import from another system. If you're going to do that on your own, you have to format your jobs on a certain way. And then we also have a long time feature in the product on the green screen side called the robot merge, and really it's merge because it's import or export. The same command, just depending upon how you fill the parameters out. You can export an entire application or a group or specific robot numbers. And what we'll do is we'll store that information in a library called robot merge lib. You can save that to a save file, send it to another system, and then restore it over there, and then run the corresponding RBT merge and import those jobs into the system. All right, I think I am required now to do a demo. So let me
Tom, I made you the presenter.
I see, oh, you did that already on the background on me. You're so quick. All right, let me first of all get my green screen up here. This is gonna be for those who are looking for green screen demos, this is your day because we're on the green screen. Okay, so you see my screen, Chuck?
I can.
All right, so I'm doing work job schedule entry. This is showing some entries that are in our work job schedule entry. I got a couple of jobs, this job 4, just this job 5, and Tom import. I've added robot lib to my library list before, but I'll do it again. And it says, hey, it's already there, just so you know you do that. And if I remember right, the format here of the command, I can prompt it. All right. And I could do all, but I'm not going to do that. Some of those things I'm just going to leave the way they are, but I'm going to import this job 4. I hit enter and we give you information and boom, it did it. All right. Now I'm going to import this job 5. All right. Boom, did it. All right. And then I'm going to import Tom import. I'm real creative, Chuck and Mark. All right, there we go. So now if I go into our green screen or the GUI, I'll just go green screen here. All right. So we'll see those 2 jobs there, this job 4 and 5. And if I look, it brings the command that I had in here, nothing earth shaking in these. Oh, I guess I did the same thing there. And then Tom import is probably a little further down.
Tom, it
right
also
there.
brought your schedule in there. Days of the
Oh,
week.
yes.
Month.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
If I look at the scheduling, whatever I had for scheduling, I guess that one didn't have much of a schedule on it by the looks of it. Oh, it did. All right. So yeah, it's doing 115 on Mondays only for this particular thing. And you can see it put an application ID of IBM scheduler, knowing that it came from there. And it is on hold. If I want, all I do is remove, and now this will run on the system. Okay. Pretty simple. All right. And I'm not doing anything fancy there. But let's say, go
Hey,
ahead.
Tom, could I add something to that?
Absolutely.
something I run into with customers when they're converting their schedulers, their IBM schedulers, is that they'll find that they have the user QSEC offer running jobs.
Oh yeah.
And it might be important to note that we don't allow QSEC offer to run jobs. So go through your job schedule list beforehand and check for that. And then also clean up any jobs that were on hold or haven't been run for years in the IBM scheduler.
Yeah, it's just a bad security practice to run things under QSEC offer. Okay. And that's a whole nother discussion of why we feel that way. But here we see, this is a job. We created a log of, the job. So from an audit perspective, we'll see this here and this here and this here. Those are the reports. Actually, there's another, I'm not sure what this log shows us. I didn't look at that earlier. But this also, oh yeah, we grabbed the job log basically. We want to protect, our staff felt really, hey, we don't want to mess things up on you. We want to protect ourselves, and we did that. So now the next command we're going to do is start robot learn. Sorry, robot start learn. You try to talk and type these commands, right? I'm going to
Right.
prompt that. And so we have an option here, submit job after created. I could say, no, I don't want to run it. I just want to learn it in and show the schedule. Now, if I say yes here, it's actually going to show me the green screen schedule list. If I said no, it's just going to create the job and not put it in the scheduler. So let's do this. Oh, I don't think I hit the command, did I? No, let me hit enter. All right, now we're in start mode. All right, so what's going to happen is if I go back into the robot menu, and I'm just going to go into our robot console product, and I believe the report menu, and there's a history report out there. And let's just say I want to submit this good morning report, and I want to put a value of 14 in there. I want 14 days worth of message history. And when I hit enter, it's going to ask me what output queue. And then since there already is a job out there that I've learned in the past, probably at some point in time, I'm going to call this RBC 430. All right. So I'm renaming the job name. So now look, it came into the scheduler. It's under learn. It's on hold. When I press F10, it shows me the parameter that it's calling. If I press F10 again, any kind of schedule, outqueue I was using, my default job description, all those things, my user profile that it's using, those things all came forward. So now when I do F3 out of here and I'm done, and actually, the nice thing, I'm going to just show you, you can also continue. So let's say I want the most common message report, and I want, what is this month? This month is, that's a bad question, 0601, oops, sorry, 23, 22. All right. And again, I can learn that one in. So my point on it is that once I'm in learn mode, I can continue to learn jobs into robot schedule, and it will just continue to do that. So now we look, those were actually probably best just to go THR. We'll see those two jobs. And again, I can start working with them, and they'll also show up in the GUI. See this, whoa, this parameter is a little more complicated. So if you're going to use reserve command variables, things like that, it might take a little more challenge to do that, but you can certainly do that. Chuck, back to you and the PowerPoint.
All right. All right, next topic. Let me know if you can see my screen. We're going to talk about cross-platform scheduling. This is an add-on to Robot Schedule, and we call it, here we go, we call it Robot Schedule Enterprise. You can see it here at the bottom of the screen, where IBM can also control and react to processes and file events running outside of IBM in the Windows Linux AIX world. So this is an add-on to Robot Schedule, just like Robot Replay is an add-on to Robot Schedule, and our SAP E1 interfaces are also add-ons. You can certainly do that. We're going to talk about Robot Replay here in just a second. So benefits. So in the real world, I know Mark runs into this in his consultancy, but we have these islands of automation. We've got Windows Task Scheduler, we've got the IBM Scheduler, we've got processes maybe running out in cron or whatnot. So now we've got a central place to do this scheduling, especially if you're IBMI centric. We know that we can rely on IBMI to run processes and work properly and stay up. So we're not dependent on, let's say, an unreliable platform to do our enterprise scheduling. All right. We know that robot schedule is very scalable and so forth. So, no problem with workload. So this technology is Java technology, both running on IBMI and outside of IBMI, using an agent that you would install, for instance, as a service in Windows. We can also integrate with Microsoft SQL Server SSI jobs. So if you do have jobs out there in Microsoft SQL Server that need to integrate somehow, maybe supply data or run reports for other platforms, you can do that. Also, by enabling this technology that also adds agent-based event processing. So we can react to scripts that are running out in the Windows world. We can do file dependencies, process dependencies. We could even, for instance, if a service was no longer available out on a Windows platform and your enterprise is dependent on that, we could detect that and we could restart the service. You do have to use the robot schedule graphical interface to enable this technology. That is required. We did not enhance the green screen for this technology. All right, so now we're talking enterprise scheduling from IBMI, and we've looked at the graphical interface quite a bit so far. But what you will see if you add Robot Schedule Enterprise to your environment now, you will see a new branch under Jobs, and it's called Jobs by Agent, and it will show you all of your agents that have jobs associated with them. Likewise, there's a new branch that shows up in the GUI that's called the Enterprise Server branch. And if you click on the Agents option, you will see all the agents, Windows, Linux, and AIX, that have the enterprise software installed there. At that point, you can now run a bat file, run a script, create a file event monitor, and so forth out on those agents. And we do have various security settings, so you can lock down servers only to particular users, and of course we'll abide by whatever authority types are out there, users out there on your agents. Other things that we have built into Robot Schedule Enterprise, we have what we call built-in functions. All right, so we can do basic FTP processes. So if, for instance, we detect that a file shows up in a Windows directory, we can take that file and we can move it into the integrated file system. Obviously, if you're doing more enterprise-wide file transfer, we'd recommend taking a look at our Go Anywhere solution, which also integrates with Robot Schedule and also runs native on IBMI as well as outside of IBMI. We also have integration to our Automate RPA technology. So if you're doing more sophisticated processing, maybe you want to compare a value on an IBMI spool file report to a value in a spreadsheet out in a Windows directory someplace. That's something that our RPA technology called Automate can do for you. I already mentioned running an SSI package out there in the Microsoft SQL Server world, and certainly any kind of script you have out there, whether it's a batch file or any other type of Unix type script, we could execute that. Okay, in terms of just navigating the GUI, we've got pre-sorts for your agent jobs now. So you're going to see a new type of job out in Robot Schedule, not just a command type job or a program job. You're going to see an agent type job. And then in the Enterprise Server branch, where you can see your agents, you're also going to see command sets, environments. Environments are the path statement, the username, et cetera, that you're going to run your processes over. And then you're also going to see your agent events. That's where you're going to create your agent events. All right. Next topic, we're going to talk file events. I'm going to turn it over to Mark Amaker.
All right. So file events are events basically that happen to a file either in the IFS or in the regular IBM library structure. And a file event is, let's say a file appears or changes, gets deleted, the size goes above or below a certain threshold. We can measure that and make it a reactive event. So yeah, and basically when something happens to those files, we can react and say, hey, run this job basically. It's kind of a high level for that. We do that both on the IBM I, and if you have Robot Schedule Enterprise, you can also do that at the Windows level. So let's say you have a customer that sends you a file once a day, and once that file arrives, either on the Windows box or on your IBM I, you then kick off a process at night. So that's kind of the main purpose of the file and directory events. So it's real handy. It's real reactive in that you don't have to have somebody manually go out and look for a file and then do something. You can set them up in your schedule. You can have them only run during certain times. So there's a lot of combinations of logic that you can use off of that. Go ahead to the next slide. All right. Along with that functionality, you can monitor for generic file names. So you can use the asterisk or the question mark as a generic value. So if you have a file that's called ABC and then maybe has the date on the end, you could use like the asterisk to say anytime file ABC appears in this directory, then take action. So it's very flexible from that aspect. And again, you do that in both the library and directory or the library structure and the IFS. So same type of deal with the asterisks and the question marks there. And we're showing some examples on the screen. So yeah, go ahead to the next slide. All right, so it's in event monitors in the GUI. So it's under the scheduling objects tab. You go to event monitors and you'll create the name for it and put in a description. And then there are, I believe, 3 different types of events. It's file event or member event, and the last one alludes. Okay, it's me. I guess it's the native one.
Mark, we lost your audio for just a little bit.
Type and you put in a time frame of when you want that event to. Okay, sorry about that. The event monitor properties, you'll fill in the name and description. You'll put in the event type, and you have 3 choices there, and then you'll put in the time when you want the event to be monitored. And then down on the bottom, there'll be file event properties. And there are several things down there that we can monitor for. On the left-hand side, added, removed, changed, or a threshold. And then as you select each of those buttons, it'll give you different attributes within that. Okay, so this one's changed, and you can either go either increased or decreased, or the date and time changed. So each event will have a lot of flexibility of when it happens. Go ahead to the next slide, please. All right. And this is showing just a different version or a different type of whether it's added, removed, changed, or threshold. So this one, the attribute is not changed in 60 seconds or it's been removed. Once that file goes away, we can create an event that can be triggered off of that. All right. And yep, go to the next slide. And you'll see in the event monitors, you will have a list of all your different events, and you can just right click on that or select it and then look at the properties for each one of them, and it'll show you what's going on there. And it does get enabled and disabled. So by default, they come out enabled, but if you did not want that event to be triggered anymore, you would just disable it. Go ahead to the next slide. All right, so how you use that, once you have your event created, you would then add it to your robot schedule job. And to do that, you would just go into the reactivity panel of your robot schedule job. And over on the right-hand side, the fourth item down is add event, or the fourth and fifth item is add agent event, which is a Windows type event, or add event, which is the IBM I event. So again, if you have Robot Schedule Enterprise, you would add an agent event. And if you just have the regular robot schedule, then you would just have add events. And then it'll bring up the list of events that you've added already, or that you've created, I'm sorry. And you would just select one of them and hit OK. Go ahead and page down. Chuck, you want to run the live demo?
You bet. All right, I get the fun part. Okay, let's turn off my laser. And let's talk a little bit about how to set up file events. Okay.
Chuck, really important point on that is we need to remind people that the file events is only in the GUI.
Only in the GUI. Exactly.
For both Windows, Unix, and Linux. If you're going to use Robot Schedule Enterprise, you have to use the GUI. It's not a green screen function.
Yeah. So let's take a look at a couple events. We'll take a look at both native as well as enterprise. So first of all, under scheduling objects, event monitors, I've got several event monitors set up. And I've got one called EFT. So it's more of a banking application, electronic funds transfer. It is enabled. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for an EFT file to be placed into my bank one directory. So let's drill into the properties and take a look at how we're limiting or not limiting this. So Mark mentioned that you can tell Robot Schedule when to look for the file event. I do not have that field populated, so this file event could happen anytime. Otherwise, I could put a limiter in there like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or something like that. Likewise, I'm checking every 5 minutes, or 5 seconds, excuse me. And then I'm using a wildcard. So any file that shows up with EFT in my bank one directory that's been added is going to trigger my event. I did not have a delay. I could say, if the file hasn't changed in 10 seconds in terms of size, then I'm going to run my process. I don't have that in here because this is a demo system. And if you do add a file has not changed parameter, you're going to want to up your frequency of when you check this. Now, likewise, I'm going to right click here. Obviously, you can copy file events, you can enable and disable them. We also have event monitor history. So when was the last time that this file event actually happened? So here's your audit trail. All right, happened on the 7th, most recently on the 10th. And here is the actual file name. So we're capturing the file name, even though we're using a wildcard just to monitor, we can also, or we are also capturing that information in the event data field. All right, now from an enterprise scheduling standpoint, the enterprise server branch will show up at the bottom if you're using Robot Schedule Enterprise, agent scheduling events, agent event monitoring, and I'll look at all agent event monitors. And let's see, I do have one here for more of a retail application. This is a POS, point of sale file event monitoring. And in this case, I'm looking at a C drive out on one of my Windows servers for a point of sale file. So same exact setup with one modification. And the modification to the agent event is that you have to tell Robot Schedule what agent to look at for this event. Otherwise, my setup is almost identical. And I'm just indicating, what is the path to that file name? And you can see I am using a wildcard there as well. Okay, what does this look like in terms of reactivity? We've talked a little bit about reactivity. Let's bring up a job blueprint and let's show you where this can apply. All right. So here's my my job flow or my blueprint, and I have my nightly processing, this gray box right in the middle. This is a robot schedule group job. And then I have my EFT file event, and I have 2 Windows file events here. These are both considered to be prerequisites for my nightly processing. So I've defined the file event, both inside and outside of IBM I. Now on the job that I want to trigger, I have to add a prerequisite code. So let's take a quick look at reactivity, and then we'll move on to our next topic. So under reactivity, you will see add agent event if you have Robot Schedule Enterprise, and then add native event or just add event. So I've got my EFT processing, my point of sale processing, my native EFT event here. And as long as the event occurs, that will fulfill the prerequisite. All right, that's a little bit about the setup. Let's go back to our PowerPoint, and we're going to talk Opal, which is
It's all you, Chuck. Let's hear about
right.
Opal.
All right, let's talk Opal. So Opal stands for Operator Assistance Language, and it's a way to qualify when or if a job should be submitted. So basically what we can do is we can check conditions on your system. For instance, we could check a data area. We could check to see if a subsystem is active. We could see if a user is active. We could see if another job is active and so forth. And based on what we see in the Opal prior to the robot job running, we could delay or totally skip your robot job. All right, and this happens automatically. I mean, consider this to be sort of like what you would do in a CL program. If you were going to do this yourself, you'd have to program those conditions into your CL program. All right, so in creating an Opal, which we consider to be an object that's reusable, you could use this Opal on multiple jobs. So you're gonna name your Opal object, and then basically you're gonna tell us what sort of logic you want us to execute. And as Mark Amaker would say, required reading is the Opal reference guide, because we've got lots of good examples. And here's some examples. So for instance, we want to run a job, but the job is scheduled every day of the week, except we don't want the job to run on the last day of the calendar month. So we have an Opal object called last day. So we compare last day to the system date. So those are Opal keywords. And if that happens, then we're going to skip the job. Opal is placed in the exception scheduling tab of your robot job, which makes sense. This is an exception to the rule. So this is where you would select the Opal that you just created. Here's another example. We've got the same job. It's scheduled as a member of a dependent group. So in other words, we're going to run jobs one after the next. And it runs on a regular basis, except on the last day of the month, you don't want that job to run. All right, so what you can do in your group member panel is you can add an Opal on any of the members. So here we've created the Opal and we've added it to an individual member in my group, and I called it skip last day. Okay, a couple things you should know. We do look at Opal in terms of our forecasting. So if you're using that for SAM or otherwise, something you want to think about. We also have something called an Opal simulator, so you can actually run the Opal in advance to see if it works, or to see what would happen right now if I tried to run this robot job. There are 2 types of Opal. You can run an Opal before your robot job runs or after. Keep in mind that Opal uses the library list that's part of your robot and robot React job. So make sure that your library lists are set up properly. The Opal exception says not allowed on group jobs, but it is allowed on group members. Okay, so exception scheduling on group jobs, you cannot add Opal to. And hey, the bottom line, only use Opal if you really need to. So this is what Tom talks about. You're on your automation journey, and you have a couple of steps left, and you need to get there, but you need to qualify things. then you're going to use opal. And Mark recommends reading the opal reference guide. We also have something called the opal cookbook, which are examples from our customers and employees for opal and console, schedule, and robot reports. Let's talk reserve command variables.
Awesome tips, Chuck. Yeah, let's get into reserve command variables. This is a feature, again, that's been in the product for many years. If we were to redo it all over again, we'd probably call them dynamic parameters because that's what they are for the most part, but they can be constants, right? So primarily you're going to use them in your command entry feature of robot schedule, but you can also use it in opal file events, as we've seen with what Mark and Chuck have shown, the command interface, and then also robot replay can use them too. And we predefine variables with the product, and you can use those and modify those as need be. Again, the great thing about them is they're global. They can be used many times in many different robot jobs, replay jobs, opal file events. And down below here, we show you that we ship you a source library or source file called RBT RSV source, and we give you some different programs that you can modify. I suggest an all good practice of programming is you copy that source into your own library and you use it just so that we don't overlay your program variables. And what you get is you get a 50 character parameter in and a 50 character parameter out. That's kind of the limitation of reserved command variables. And then also there's a command that you can run in a robot schedule job called robot lib RBT change reserve variable. And that gives you the capability to modify reserve variables. So you might do something like use that command to set the business date that's going to be used by all the other jobs that you're calling for the night, for that night's processing. Okay. So here we are in the GUI again. This feature is in the GUI and green screen. It'll work very much the same. What we're showing you on the left is that you can have constant values. Constant values mean that somebody has to either interactively put the value in there, or you use the command robot change reserve variable to change the constant value, which you might do something like next invoice number, next cash draft number, maybe some other billing cycle or something like that that you have to update and pass into your programs. Over to the right, we're using a reserve command variable dynamic. In this case, we're calling your program, we're passing in some parameters, and we're getting parameters back, and they'll populate that value of at date -7. This happens to show you system date is what S stands for. Minus means -7 days. You can do a plus sign there, etc. And that's taking advantage of the sample code that we ship with the product. Again, you can use these. We encourage you to use them, and they're documented in the user guide how to use them. All right. And then, of course, maybe you have a challenge like I need to have a fiscal year end date passed in throughout the year into all my different applications. We can create a variable called at fisc end, and we can have a constant value, and we can use that robot change variable, or we can interactively go in and modify it. Okay, next slide. And so here's just some examples. So maybe this is an example of the job command entry where we're running the robot good morning report, passing in a -1 and today's date. That's what those at date M1 mean, and at date. The next one is we're calling one of your programs called account close, and we're passing in today's date -1. The next one is in opal. We can use it in opal. We can use it actually in robot console opal and robot schedule opal. And for that matter, well, let's think about it. Robot reports, I don't think you can. Robot replay, this is our interactive green screen learning product. And here we're passing into a parameter on the screen, a dynamic date. And I think Chuck's gonna show that rather quickly. And then the last example is agent jobs. In your agent where Robot Schedule Enterprise Agent is installed, we give you an API in there so that your Windows, Unix, or Linux program, your script could take advantage of a reserved command variable in that regard. Next slide. So, and in here is again that good morning report with us calling the program directly without the command, passing in a month range of date, hard coded. That's probably not a good idea. So on the bottom, we show you how to use a reserved command variable and give you the values that you would need in order to call this program and pass in the correct parameter. Notice we have apostrophes around our dates, things like that. And then Chuck showed earlier how you can test out how it's going to get substituted before it runs. And then also keep in mind, in your job log, we will actually show you the values when we execute them. So very good. And that's one of the other things that Robot Schedule is really good at, is documenting what we're doing as we run your batch processing. Speaking of batch, let's talk about interactive, Chuck.
All right. Yeah. Well, and you're on your automation journey, and it may very well be that you've got some interactive processes that need to be automated. In other words, you can't call directly the programs that need to run. So there's some interactive updates, let's say, that happen behind the scenes. So what happens with Robot Replay is we record the 5250 data stream into a file as you run the process. That's what Robot Replay will do for you. And then you take that interactive recording and you use a Robot Replay command to execute that in your batch job stream. And what happens behind the scenes, we spin up a 5250 virtual session, we feed it the 5250 data stream, and you can go further with your automation. Tom said you could insert reserve command variables into the interactive screens, so to automate, for instance, a date range or something like that. So let's take a real quick look at that.
Let's see, we need a green screen. You're getting close.
Oh,
You've
and my
gone
green
by.
screen
There
is a
you are.
white screen.
There you go.
Okay, let me get rid of my
Yeah, you got it.
laser. Yeah.
Yeah.
So real quick here, we're going to go into Robot Replay number 11, and we're going to work with replay objects, F6 to create a new one. And I'm going to call this comp message W. So this is completion messages
Yeah.
warnings.
Chuck, while you do this, let me tell people too that, you always have a choice, right? When you have an interactive process, you either do something like Robot Replay, or you have to rewrite it so it will run in batch. So Robot Replay is a good choice for people that maybe don't own their source code and can't modify it. We have Mapex customers, for example, or an N4XA, whatever you want to call it. So Chuck is going in, he's learning these screens. Continue on,
Yeah,
Chuck.
and actually, I just took an incorrect screen, but that's okay. So we just recorded it into our replay. Everything I'm doing is being recorded. That's no
Mistakes
big
are
deal.
allowed.
I just backed mistakes are allowed. So I'm gonna run the completion message listing for warnings from 062222, from 0600 to 062322 to 6 in the morning. I'm gonna press enter. I'm gonna put in my PDF out queue.
I like it.
Press enter. I'm gonna F3, 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 and I'm gonna sign off. And there is my comp message W replay recording. And here are my panels. And one of these panels contains a date range, and I think it's this one. Let's preview it. No, oh, that's right. I had a mistake. So
You
I
made a
recorded
mistake.
a couple extras. So I think it's this one. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to hit the F8 key. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use my tab key, and I'm going to tab over to my from date prompt on it. And I'm going to put add at DAT -1. All right, F12 out of there. Notice I got at signs on the screen. I'm going to
You
prompt.
have to hit F12 or it will not update it.
Yes. There we go.
Notice
All right.
F12 says save and exit.
All right.
And then, cool. Look at
now
that.
I've got two variables there, and I can schedule that with an option 7. And the key here is RPY execute is now the command I'm going to run. I'm going to run the Robot Replay object. I'll just put my user here on the robot job. And should we run it, Tom?
We should. And then the other tip on that is you do need to run these through a job queue that allows more than one job to run. Because when we do this, we actually, yeah, you got a mistake.
I got a mistake, but
what happened?
And we'll go dive into that. But we only have a couple of minutes, so let's.
Yeah, we'll look at the mistake here.
We'll look at the mistake, and when during Q&A, maybe we'll be able to go
let's
back.
Do that. We'll come back to the screen. We'll diagnose what the problem is. Right.
All right. Yep.
So the last topic we have is just some other tips when we think about Robot Schedule. Think about all the integration that we have across the robot product line. Robot Replay, as we saw for 5250. We also integrate with Robot Reports. We saw that on day one, where we can use it for archiving and distribution. Also keep in mind, we also own WebDocs, which is a full-blown document management solution for IBMI. There's no reason that Robot Schedule won't work with it. We have the enterprise piece that allows us to do the Windows, Unix, and Linux. Robot Schedule, certainly think about it for your backups, your reporting, your batch processing. It's not just for system tasks or not just for business processes. We can do it all. We really are a business process automation tool also, when you think about it. We're also an enterprise scheduler. We also can integrate with Windows, Unix, and Linux. We can run things like email, SharePoint, spreadsheets, things like that. We also have many customers that use our BI product, SQL or Showcase, to automate or use Robot Schedule to automate those processes. We also can use it to run your security reports, like from PowerTech or other competitive security tools. No reason we can't do that. We also have special interfaces into JD Edwards Enterprise One. For those who run that technology, you're probably familiar with UBE's Universal Batch Engine. And then SAP, we run the BAPIs in SAP. For those who run on IBMI, we can do that. And then, of course, we have a lot of Go Anywhere customers that use Robot Schedule for file transfers and use Go Anywhere on Windows, Unix, and Linux, and IBMI for that process. So a lot of integration in the product. Did I miss anything? Polling question.
No, no. I will launch the last polling question, Tom.
Thank you, Chuck. I wasn't ready. Appreciate that.
All right.
Okay,
and here we go.
All right. How can help systems help you? Select all that apply. I would like more robot schedule training. That means you'll be working with Mark and Brian in our services group. I'd like robot health check, where we'll spend some time, take a look at how you're using the product and make suggestions. I'd like a personal demo. We'll do that also. Maybe you want to install Robot Schedule and get started. Certainly just work with your sales rep. They'll give you a trial. It's the actual product, and you can start creating jobs that you'll use in production. And then the final one is the tech updates. As I said earlier in the week, these are great conversations for you and your manager and your CIO. And people don't realize how much Help Systems has changed. You may think of us as just that robot scheduling company. Reality is we do 80% of our business now is off of IBMI, which is not a bad thing. It's allowed our company to grow, but we do a ton in the enterprise security space today. So you'd be surprised if you have one of those tech updates, all that we do. All right, well, this is open, Chuck. Probably some, do we have any, the other thing in the chat, people, I put a couple of tips in there. One is the IBM Insiders program that we have that we'd encourage you to join. We'd love to have you part of that. And then also, I also put out in the chat a link to where you'll find recordings of previous webinars and the keyword schedule in there. And these series of webinars from this week will show up on our on-demand webinar schedule probably by like Monday.
Yeah.
Chuck, any questions that you see out there that you're?
Yeah, Kevin's got a question about building a job flow diagram of all the jobs that are chained together or
Daisy
reactive
chained together.
Yeah, yeah, and certainly a blueprint allows you to do that. And what you do when you create your blueprint is there's a reload option. You simply click on the furthest job out on the chain, click reload, and it'll continue to load in all the dependencies. Otherwise, of course, you can use our browser interface, and that's quite similar.
Yep. Is available in browser. Interesting. I think, I'm not sure what they're about. David asked a question about the browser. There is a browser. You have to install the Insight technology on your Windows or Linux server and then define the rules, and then Robot Schedule will show up in there. In the browser, Robot Schedule in the browser is more of a read-only mode. You can do this diagramming that Chuck just talked about. You also can hold and release jobs, and you can see all your history and all those things. But it's it's browser only. You can't add or it's view only. You can't add jobs and change jobs in there. Okay. Somebody asked earlier about Jack Henry software. We do have Silver Lake Jack Henry customers using the robot products besides Robot Alert and Robot Council. So we'd have to maybe look through our database and give you some other references in that regards.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
other questions?
Back to our replay job. I ran the wrong job, Tom. Sorry. I should have run my comp message W job. And as you can see in the interactive job log, it submitted all those interactive processes. And if it all completes correctly, the job will complete normally, and then that could be a prerequisite for other processes. Yeah.
And the person asking about Silver Lake Bank, really all you really need to do is talk to your sales representative, and they'll probably reach out to Chuck or I and say, hey, do you know any Silver Lake banks that could talk to us, and we'll go through that and help you out there.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, Chuck,
yeah,
go ahead.
Good session. I was just going to say, if we missed any questions, we will be examining the Q&A and we'll follow up with you after the fact.
Yeah, I think we'll put this Q&A back out, and we should grab all the Q&A from this week, Chuck, and we'll put it out into the Insiders forum. So you'll be able to see the Q&A out there. So if you go join Insiders, we'd love to have you out there. There's some fun things. There's trivia out there every week. I know we're all looking for more things to do. You can't just do Wordle every day, right? You got to do some other things.
All right. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed today's presentation. And if you do have any follow-up questions, you can feel free to email us directly or email info@helpsystems.com. Otherwise, gentlemen, it's been great spending some time with you. We don't spend enough time together. Have a great weekend.
Great
Thanks,
seeing
everyone.
you guys virtually. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.